Watch this. And this. And this. This is all recent IDF activity in southern Lebanon, destroying Hezbollah's terror infrastructure house by house. And this is absolutely mind-boggling. And we have to be so grateful to God above and to our holy IDF soldiers on the ground risking their lives in doing this. Now understand, we in Israel did not expect to be this successful in Lebanon this quickly. For years, decades, the fear of a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon was tremendous. Even up to just a few months ago, all of Israel's security establishment was basically against going to war against Hezbollah because of this fear. But something changed. And today, Israel, thanks to divine providence and a huge strategic, game-changing military operation, has turned this war in Lebanon around in Israel's favor. Now, I want to give you some background. Again, for decades, Israel has been preparing to face a very well-armed, well-prepared Hezbollah enemy in Lebanon. We're talking about Hezbollah with hundreds of thousands of precision rockets and other rockets aimed at crippling Israel, that the international community, the United Nations, and UNIFIL committed via UN Resolution 1701 to prevent, but never did. Hezbollah weren't just planning these hundreds of thousands of rockets to cripple Israel in attacks. They also had a well-thought-out infiltration strategy developed over decades, similar to what Hamas did to us on October 7th, 2023. They were planning a mass infiltration through Israel's northern border with a huge massacre of Israeli citizens in their homes and taken hundreds, if not thousands, of Israeli citizens from their homes captives into Lebanon. This was supposed to be a devastating multi-front assault on Israel, all being done at the same time, Hamas, Hezbollah, everything. Hezbollah turned civilian homes into southern Lebanon into terror centers. Villages along Israel's northern border were prepared for the day of infiltration with underground tunnel networks all along. This was a ticking time bomb that Israel's security establishment was afraid of dealing with because of the dangers involved. And even when the IDF launched our initial military offensive into Lebanon just weeks ago, everyone expected that it would cost Israel dearly, both in terms of IDF casualties and the damage to our critical infrastructure and to many, many civilian lives from all the rocket attacks. The picture we were painted was thousands of precision and non-precision missiles landing on Israel day after day after day. You can imagine the fear that escalation with Hezbollah generated. It was a true Iranian deterrent against us for decades. But something incredible happened that no one predicted. Something that has literally changed the entire trajectory of this war. Our holy IDF soldiers who went into Lebanon prepared for a bloody, intense fight found something completely different, a different reality. Instead of tens of thousands of entrenched, well-trained Hezbollah fighters waiting for them, they discovered mostly empty villages. I have a son in one of the units going into those villages, and what he's seeing firsthand matches the official reports coming from the IDF and their videos. They're finding that most or many of the houses and tunnels in these villages, while filled with an unbelievable amount of ammunition and rockets, but with few Hezbollah fighters. Please understand, there are some Hezbollah fighters still in some of these homes, villages, and tunnels, and our holy IDF soldiers are still being careful and cautious. But they are utterly shocked to see and experience a reality in southern Lebanon that is so much better than what we all expected, because we all expected it to be so much worse. So why is this? And what caused this dramatic shift of so many Hezbollah fighters not being there? The answer is what I call the James Bond-like beeper and walkie-talkie operations that eliminated most of Hezbollah's mid-level command structure, which was then followed up with the elimination of Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, and the senior command of Hezbollah. These operations, planned with surgical precision, neutralized the mid-level command leadership of Hezbollah and the senior command. The enemy fighters, the Hezbollah fighters who were left on Israel's borders and who were supposed to lead the deadly assault into Israeli communities and hold the line against an IDF offensive into Lebanon, were suddenly left leaderless. They had no orders, no coordination, and no senior command to direct them what to do. And here's the kicker. Because of the walkie-talkie and beeper operations, the enemy fighters became too scared to use any type of technology to communicate. So they were without communication between one another. They fear that the moment they try to send orders or gather intelligence via their technology, Israel will intercept it. So the assumption is that many of them ran away. Yes, they literally ran away from their positions along Israel's border. Of course, we are still facing and will still face pockets of resistance like the recent ambush on the Agos commando unit that killed 6 holy IDF soldiers and injured 24. But without that targeted strike authorized by Prime Minister Netanyahu, this war would be looking entirely different. Also, even though there was more of a fear of Hezbollah fighters as better trained and having more battle experience than the Hamas fighters in Gaza, because they fought in Syria for years, it was also that the Hezbollah fighters have a chance to run away up to northern Lebanon. Hamas fighters in Gaza, they have nowhere to run to. They're stuck in Gaza. So they are stuck to fight while they can't run away from Gaza. So all this, it is important to understand on the macro level how this was an unbelievable game changer that completely transformed the war in Lebanon and, frankly, the larger war Israel is up against, Iran. We can't ignore that Iran has spent billions of dollars over the years building up Hezbollah as a proxy force on Israel's northern border. Their plan was clear for Hezbollah to act as a deterrence against Israel from striking Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran wanted to paralyze Israel with fear of a northern front, and they did so successfully for decades. But now, that deterrence is gone. Israel is successfully destroying the Hezbollah threat in Lebanon, all thanks to the seriously amazing James Bond-like precision operation that took out around 4,000 Hezbollah commanders, leaving their fighters leaderless and without communication to their higher-ups. Now Iran is scrambling to replace the eliminated Hezbollah leaders, to reactivate their forces, and to keep the pressure on us. But every time Iran appoints new leaders for Hezbollah, Israel eliminates those replacements literally within hours. There is no precedent in modern history for what Israel is doing right now or has been doing to destroy an enemy force with the systematic destruction of the enemy command structure. They have no command. But Iran knows the game has changed. And yes, I hope not, but most probably we will still have some setbacks, as we recently saw with the Agos unit. And Iran's proxies will continue to challenge us and try to ambush us with whatever fighters they do have and rockets. But make no mistake, Hezbollah's grip has been broken. Iran's octopus threat around Israel has been broken. First Hamas, and now Hezbollah. And now we have to go after the head of the snake and end this once and for all. As Canada's opposition leader recently said,
and if Israel were to stop that genocidal, theocratic, unstable government from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
And with this war in Lebanon showing the cracks in Iran's proxy terror system across the Middle East, that reality is closer than ever. This is an unprecedented moment in history, not just for Israel, but for the whole freedom-loving world. What was expected to be a devastating war for Israel in Lebanon, with a massive amount of casualties, has become something else entirely. A war where our soldiers are walking into empty villages where the enemy has fled, and where the command and control that Iran built up for years has collapsed just in a matter of days. We need to recognize the courageous decisions that brought us to this point, and the resilience of our holy IDF soldiers who continue to fight for our survival. It's not all easy up there. They're still fighting, and there's still Hezbollah soldiers there. This war is not over. but the path forward looks radically different than what we feared just a short time ago. It's insane to think that these James Bond-like beeper and walkie-talkie operations, the ones that took out Hezbollah's command structure and completely changed the outcome of the war in Lebanon, would not have happened if Netanyahu had listened to Israel's Minister of Defense or the senior security establishment's advice against escalating anything in southern Lebanon. These same people were pushing the Biden-Harris administration agenda, which was all about calling for a ceasefire to stop Israel from going into Lebanon and escalation in the region. If Netanyahu had listened to his senior security staff in the IDF and buckled under the Biden-Harris pressure, all of Hezbollah's command and leadership would still be alive, Nasrallah would still be alive, Hezbollah's threat of October 7th, like mass infiltration, massacre, mass raping, and mass kidnapping, would still exist, and Israel would have no ability to even think about attacking Iran's nuclear facilities like we're thinking about today, and hopefully going to do. If I would be given a moment with the Biden-Harris administration, I would say straight out, no, your idea of a ceasefire, which is basically stopping Israel from firing to respond to 11 months of unprovoked Hezbollah rockets upon Israel, that's not going to stop anything. To end the escalation in the region and secure lasting peace can only be done by eliminating the root of the problem. That is Iran's nuclear threat and network of terror proxies in and around Israel, including Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Authority is also a terror supporting organization, and all other jihadi terror organizations. Thankfully, Prime Minister Netanyahu held firm. He didn't cave to the pressure from his own security establishment or from the Biden-Harris White House. He knew that you don't stop a terror threat by pausing. You stop it by going after the source. The world is starting to wake up to the fact that Iran is at the core, together with Qatar, of the instability in the Middle East and the world. And the real solution is no temporary ceasefire that just allows the situation to fester and grow even worse. It's getting rid of Iran's nuclear ambitions and destroying all the terror networks in the Middle East for good. These operations were a bold decision by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and it's already changing the outcome of the war in Lebanon. And more importantly, it's changing the future for the entire region and for the world. These James Bond-like game-changer operations for the war were not just about winning this war. They are about a shift. They are about bringing a shift of the balance of power in the entire region. Iran's deterrence is shattered, and Israel is finally in a position to protect not just itself, but the whole freedom-loving world from the Iranian nuclear threat. There you go, the politically incorrect truth about what's going on behind the scenes and behind the headlines that you're not really hearing from other media sources, and in more detail. If this is information that you believe is value and important to be heard by you and other people, if you're not a subscriber to Pulse of Israel, what are you waiting for? Go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And to support our work, besides just sharing our videos, but to allow our videos to be seen by more people, we are a donor-based operation. All you have to do is every once in a while click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com. Signing off for another episode here on our eternal and ancestral homeland, the land of Israel, in our eternal, biblical, beautiful, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.